Good morning, friends. Danielle here. Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but here we are at the Biltmore Home and Gardens. We're going to start here right above the historic Gilded Age Rose Garden, where they have tons of lupin and beautiful iris in bloom. Does anyone know the variety of this lovely light purple lupin? I sure would love to add it into the garden. In the distance, you can see the gardener's house. Wouldn't it be an absolute dream to live there? I think the gardener's house is about 20 times larger than the house I currently live in. Can anyone else relate to that? We're passing by some amazing astilbe. There's columbine in the distance, and I can't wait to step down into that amazing and ginormous rose garden where over 2,000 roses are currently in bloom. But before we head down there, let's go down this right-hand side of the border where they already have peonies in full bloom. It's going to be about 3 more weeks until we have peonies in Pennsylvania, but I am loving seeing all of the color and blooms arrive early in Asheville, North Carolina. As we travel down this side of the border, I see some absolutely stunning orange bearded iris and pink peonies. Do you think that's Sarah Bernhardt? That's my best guess. And as I lift the camera up higher, you can see down to that amazing rose garden below. After planting roses in the driveway garden, I think I have officially been bitten by the rose-loving bug, and now I need to add even more roses into the garden. So I'm looking for new and exciting varieties, really disease-resistant varieties in a lovely light pink color, because my daughter said that's the color rose that she would love to have in our garden. I think I've been dreaming of going to the Biltmore House and Gardens since I was a little girl, and I'm not sure when this obsession with the Biltmore started, but I think it's because as a young girl, I was only really allowed to watch PBS and old movies. So while some people were going to NSYNC concerts, I was watching Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies. I was watching The Philadelphia Story with Katharine Hepburn and falling in love with beautiful old homes. And since the Biltmore is the most famous old home in America, I guess it's only natural that I always wanted to visit. Now, here's a fun fact. I shot a movie at the home where the Philadelphia Story was shot, but I'm pretty sure I was cut out of that movie completely. Oh well, at least I got to step foot inside those iconic doors. It's really cool how you can drive around the rose garden at the Biltmore. We did that on our way home, but they are just so far ahead of us here in Asheville, 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. The catmint is in bloom, and here we're coming up on some Siberian iris. Let me know, what's your favorite kind of iris? Do you like bearded iris, Siberian iris, Iris reticulata? I think I like bearded iris best, but I do have some Siberian iris in a lovely, vivid, mid-range purple from my grandma's garden that's very near and dear to my heart. Well, I can't wait any longer. Let's head on down to this historic rose garden and see what it feels like to be in a Gilded Era garden together. You know, this garden reminds me of a combination of the Hershey Gardens in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the Morris Arboretum, which is also in Pennsylvania, which I highly recommend visiting in, I would say, about 2 weeks. Both of those gardens will be peaking. I have a tour of the Morris Arboretum here on YouTube, and I want to take us back to Hershey when the roses are in bloom because it is a stunning garden, and it'll be interesting to see how many roses they have at Hershey because it does feel comparable to what we're seeing here at the Biltmore. Now this beautiful light peachy pink ivory rose might be a good choice for the driveway garden, but I think it's a little bit too tall for the current Flower Lady statue that we have, so maybe we should keep looking around. This rose really knocked my socks off. Does anyone know if this is a shrub rose or a rambler rose? I'm not sure, but whatever it is, I completely love the structure of this rose. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was the Rose Chat podcast. It's a great podcast by one of our friends here that watches the channel. Her name is Teresa, but she had on someone from David Austin Roses, and they said that some rambling roses can take part shade. So it made me think I might be able to plant some ramblers that are disease resistant in the driveway garden near that really large Nellie Stevens holly. Let's continue to look at some of these beautiful roses. I'm assuming these are hybrid tea roses that we're seeing here. Although don't take my advice when it comes to roses. I'm really brand new to rose care, but I absolutely love what I'm seeing right now. And my daughter mentioned that this particular rose was her favorite. We were all smelling the roses, and the scent of this garden permeated the entire garden. Even when you went into the conservatory, I felt like what you were smelling was the rose garden. My husband is so funny. He has special names for all the different flowers. He calls alliums boom boom fireworks, foxglove ding dong bells, and he calls irises the grape soda flower. We still need to have him do a garden tour at North Lawn. Now, are you like me? You're living in America, but you secretly wish you were living in England and your garden was surrounded by stone walls. There's something about a walled garden that adds that extra layer of romance to a space. My dream is to one day move over to England and have a walled garden full of all different garden rooms, a long perennial border, a rose garden, a cutting garden, a veggie garden, a shrub border, an azalea garden. Wouldn't that be an absolute dream? Although I think I probably would need to hire some gardeners to help me if I get any bigger than half an acre. But I just love seeing all of these roses, and roses really remind me of my mom. I think my grandma grew some roses, but my mom has a special touch with roses. She had an amazing rambler growing on a chain link fence. It covered the whole fence so you couldn't even see that it was chain link, and it was in a beautiful vibrant magenta color. So let me know, what's your favorite rose, both in your garden, and what's your favorite rose that you're seeing along our garden tour today? It's really hard to pick a certain one. I'll tell you the one that keeps sticking out to me is the purple roses that look like pillars that we saw a few clips back. These ones are really vibrant and almost look like they would glow in the dark at night. Really shocking in a way, but I like the dark colored foliage. I'm starting to wonder if growing roses vertically would also help with all the disease problems that we have on roses in my humid and wet climate. I saw that rose tunnel in the distance, and I'm wondering if putting something like that in the driveway garden would also allow me a new, different, and unique way to grow roses in a climate where rose care can be challenging without the use of fungicides. I love how they have the interior of these rose tunnels planted with only green. They've got just hostas, astilbes, ferns, and pachysandra growing in these tunnels, and I think having that moment of rest is so nice and calming for your eyes and your spirit. You walk through this beautiful green tunnel, and then you're smacked right in the face with all of those stunning roses and all of that stunning fragrance. But it is really nice to have that break from the color and what some might even consider chaos. I'm not sure why this is, but it seems to me that a garden that's 100% green is always calming, relaxing, and peaceful. Why do you think that is? Do you think that in a way we're being distracted by blooms and colors? Do you think we're being overstimulated by things in bloom? I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I do know that whenever I'm in a garden that's only green or only green and white, I do feel incredibly calm. Now, in contrast to that, they have another garden above the rose garden that appears to be an annual garden that I'm assuming is switched out periodically. I'm guessing that they probably had spring bulbs in this area last month, but now they've got petunias, pansies, dianthus, alliums, and snapdragons in this garden. I really enjoyed it, but I prefer a garden that continues to force you to explore the garden. And sometimes with geometric gardens that are repetitive, you kind of see everything at once, and it doesn't encourage you to stay a while. So let me know, what was your favorite part of those two gardens at the Biltmore? Now it's time for us to head inside and see what must be the most beautiful library in the entire world. One interesting takeaway from looking through all of the interior rooms as a gardener is that sometimes they would use fresh florals, sometimes they would use faux florals, and then sometimes they would mix the two together, adding in real potted plants. And why do you think they chose to do that versus just using all fresh plant material and all fresh flowers? It wasn't something that bothered me or took away from the experience, but in a way it did pull my focus to see fake wisteria being kind of pushed into calla lily plants. It was an interesting choice. Why do you think they chose to do that? This billiard room was really breathtaking, and it led into an elegant dining room fit for a king and queen. Although once my husband said that it reminded him of the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones, I quickly wanted to exit that room and move on to the next. And here we can see a prime example of what I'm talking about with the silk forsythia and the silk pincushion flower in that dining room arrangement. Now here we are in the second dining room. How many dining rooms are in the Biltmore total? I'm not sure I figured that out before we left, but you know people are wealthy when their ceilings look like this. Now, when it came to the fresh florals, I was completely blown away by the artistry. I loved the use of delphinium, alliums, and roses together, and they're just sticking in tons of bearded iris everywhere you look, which just reminds me that when the bearded irises bloom, and the time period that they bloom is so small, to remember to go ahead and pick some and put some in arrangements, because it really does just elevate the design. Here we're seeing hydrangeas, yellow roses, alliums, and more yellow bearded iris. Isn't that spectacular? Having fresh flowers in a room always takes that room to the next level. I believe this was a music room. It seems like every room in this house has a fireplace. And it appears, of course, that they've all been converted to gas at this point. Once again, look at the ceiling. Wow. Now let's enter what has to be the most beautiful library I've ever seen. How much money do you think it would cost to build this library in 2025? I wouldn't even know where to start in terms of throwing a number out there. But the room, oh, it's just gorgeous. The florals were exquisite. The woodwork was exquisite. The books were beautiful. The furniture, oh, it just all took my breath away. Look at that spiral staircase up to the upper level of the library. As we were walking around, my husband was listening to the audio tour, and he told me that on that tour they said that as you walk up this spiraling staircase, that one of the bookcases is actually a secret door that leads into a guest bedroom. Wouldn't you love to be the guest that gets to sleep in this secret library room? I think that must be heaven on earth. We're going to head into Mr. Vanderbilt and Mrs. Vanderbilt's bedroom and sitting area before ending this video. But whenever I visit a large home like this or a large garden, I like to try to think about what can I take away from this garden or this place. For me, the takeaway is the importance of even having a small vase of fresh flowers in the home. It seemed to me that in every room where there was not fresh flowers, I really had no interest of staying in that room longer. There is a power behind flowers that I don't think you can get with fake florals. There's still life in those flowers. They're there to pass that life on to you and keep you going and excited from day to day. And of course, most of us can't even understand the amount of money that we're seeing in this video, but we all can pick a few violets from the garden, a few dandelions from the garden, a few pansies, bring them inside, and bring that life from the garden into our homes. I want to wish you a fabulous day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you back at North Lawn in just a few days' time. Bye, friends.